Thanks again for tuning in to Armor of God, and I always hope that whenever you are here, you are going to learn a lot about our faith, not only on spiritual warfare, but our Catholic faith as a whole. And to all of you who are non-Catholic, whether you're Protestants, Orthodox, atheist, and so many others, I hope that videos like this will be able to give you more understanding about what we Catholics believe. Now, for the past few videos, I've shared a lot of videos that cover the subject of exorcism, especially from my recent interview with Father Winston, the exorcist from the Philippines. And I thought for just a little while, I'd take a break from that in this video and share a few clips that I have of Father Joseph Iannuzzi instead. And as you can see from this table of content, I've put together quite a few. By the way, I'll have another session with him on Zoom in July, and for that one, I'm going to focus on the writings and quotes of the saints, like Saint Gemma, Saint Pio.
Speaking of purgatory, yeah, it must be a really hot place, because there's a liquid fire. Not sure if you're aware of that. And just try to think of that for a moment. If you have in your veins fire, liquid flowing through your veins, you're going to feel hot. It's the experience of the souls in purgatory. They're being purged from within. Their whole entrails, whatever you want to call them, their spiritual body is being purged. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's actually, I think it's in France, an impression of a hand in a door in a convent of a soul from purgatory that appeared. And the person that the soul in purgatory was appearing to, asking for prayers, was asked by the soul, can you leave proof that you're truly from purgatory? And the soul put its hand on a door in the church, the convent, and to this day it's a burn mark. You see the silhouette of the hand. I know there were a lot of Father Grichel, for example, whom I knew personally. He was against this whole idea that we should be afraid of purgatory, and he has a good point, because he says it's God's love that's igniting those flames. And I say, yes, Father Benedict, but there's still flames. But there are different levels in purgatory. You have the highest, there are three major categories according to the saints, three major levels in purgatory. And the highest level, close to heaven, there's no physical pain, no physical suffering, no fire. It's just the absence of God, which is in itself a torment for the soul that's being drawn to him but can't see him. But in the lowest level, which is close to hell, according to the writings of these saints, the sufferings are just as intense as those of hell. But with one difference, they say, there's hope. That they're not condemned. There's hope. But the sufferings are almost identical to the sufferings in hell. And in hell, we know that what the sufferings are based on the descriptions of the Council of Trent. There's cold and there's heat. There's both extremes. And then the soul, of course, is purged according to whatever sins it entertained or the faculties used in those sins on earth. So let's say it stole, its hands, right, would be purged. Or if it went to illicit places, its feet would be purged. Or if it harbored evil things in its heart, its bosom will be purged. If it spoke bad of other people, its tongue would be purged.
Now, recently we've witnessed and read on the news the exchange of attacks between Israel and Iran, and not forgetting the ones that are currently taking place between Ukraine and Russia, and many other conflicts around the world, and especially the one involving Israel and Iran. A lot of videos of people talking about the end times, and then there are videos on how the world is coming to the end, etc. So I want to share this clip again on the end times, and what it really means through the lens of the Catholic Church. Please listen to this.
Now, I was asked also to address some questions concerning the day in which we live in these end times, and I would like to address them publicly, and these questions are anonymous, of course. Now, one of the questions is, Our Lady, the Blessed Mother, who gives birth to the infant Jesus, has been appearing a lot in these end times, preparing us for, not the first coming of Christ, which took place 2,000 years ago, but an intermediary coming of Christ that is about to happen, which is not to be confounded with the final coming of Christ, which is at the end of the world and the general judgment. No, this intermediary coming of Christ prophesied at Fatima, prophesied in various writings of the doctors and mystics and saints, is an interior reign of the Trinity within the intellect, memory, and will of the human being. Now, this period will last a long time. Revelation chapter 20 talks about this. So the question is it true that we are living in the end times and that the Blessed Mother said that many cardinals, bishops, and priests are taking many souls with them to hell? First of all, yes, we are living in the end times. The end times doesn't mean the end of the world. What does it mean, the end times? It means the end of the time of the reign of the human will. those times we are living in today. We are about to enter into the times of God's will reigning in man and the end time of the human will. And we are awaiting, therefore, a new Pentecost. This is an expression used by both saints, Pope John the 23rd and John Paul II. Both spoke of a new Pentecost about to occur. And Pope John Paul II associated it with the third millennium of Christianity, which is the seventh millennium since the creation of Adam. Just as God rested on the seventh day, and just as a day to God is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years like a day, so God will rest in the seventh millennium with creation. So Saint Faustina, a 20th century Polish mystic, says that before the day of justice, God is sending the day of mercy. And this is why Jesus called Faustina in these end times. Now, with respect to prelates going to hell and taking many souls with them, let us recall that while God predestines no one to go to hell, this is found in the Catholic Catechism, Article 1037, the Council of Florence acknowledges that humans who do not abide by the true faith are indeed lost for eternity. The Church also teaches that at the moment of death, the soul's judgment is immediate, and this word immediate comes from the Councils of Florence and Lyons. It's also found in the Catholic Catechism, Articles 1022 and 1035, and it acknowledges the existence of hell and its eternity. Catholic Catechism 1035. Throughout the writings of several church-approved mystics, including those of Faustina and others, we know that hell is an eternal place. And Faustina speaks of it too in her entry 741 in the Diary of Divine Mercy. Now, with respect to prelates taking souls to hell, it is incorrect to assert that the sinful actions of one person, take for example a cardinal, a bishop, a priest, are the direct cause of the loss of the soul of another. This is wrong. It is incorrect to assert that the sinful actions of one person are the direct cause of the loss of the soul of another person. It is correct, however, to affirm that one person may be the direct cause of depriving another of God's special or extraordinary graces, and the indirect cause of another's possible damnation. And I use the word possible because each person's free and intended choices directly decide his or her own destiny and not those of another. I cannot condemn you to hell. Your worst enemy cannot condemn you to hell. So how can you say that a cardinal or a priest can condemn people to hell? They can't. But what they can do is they can deprive another soul, and this doesn't apply just to cardinals or prelates. It applies to lay parents as well, and lay people as well. They can deprive another of God's special graces. For example, an evildoer's immoral actions frustrate the flow of grace into another soul. This is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 26, right? You see, sin has an interpersonal dimension. One person's sins necessarily impact another. St. Paul suggests this when he affirms, when one member of the body suffers, all suffer. At Fatima, when Mary opened the earth and revealed to the 3 shepherd children a vision of hell, she affirmed, many souls are going to hell because there are not enough people to pray for them. So actual sin has an interpersonal dimension. Our lack of prayer can lead them, can cause a soul to be lost. That's true. But we're not putting them there, you see. Their own choices do, but on account of the graces or lack thereof that we could have obtained for them. When combined with penance, prayers, our lives can be efficacious in the conversion of sinners and even the salvation of hardened souls at the moment of death. And I always recall this example of the little flower, Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux, who prayed for the conversion of a notorious unrepentant killer, Henry Pranzini, prior to his death by guillotine for his murderous crimes. The little flower, she had a newspaper in the convent, and she read that he was about to be beheaded, which was the capital punishment in France at the time. So she prayed very intensely for several days. And on the day of his execution, she wanted to know whether or not she had snatched his soul from hell. So she read the paper after he died, the following day, in fact, after his death, and recorded how, when he was about to put his head in the guillotine, he replied. This is what she writes. In quotes, he turned, took hold of the crucifix the priest was holding out to him, and kissed the sacred wounds 3 times. Now, if a hardened sinner can be saved at the moment of his death on account of a special grace obtained on behalf of that person through the intercession of a saint, that was necessary for that person's salvation. All the more is this possible through the prayers of holy anointed prelates, who by virtue of their sacramental vocation are entrusted by God with thousands of souls, of the obligation we all have of administering grace to others through our example, through our rectitude of life, through our prayer life, through our selflessness, through our almsgiving and so forth.
Like I said earlier, this compilation is a collection of clips of Father Iannuzzi, and they're both and long in this video. And the following clip is going to be a short one, a little bit on Saint Faustina.
Faustina. You know, she burned part of her Diary of Divine Mercy because she was initially uncertain if this was the voice of God and the voice of Satan. Josefa Menendez from Spain, not a saint, but nonetheless a holy, saintly soul. She was deceived by the devil to throw her revelations into the fire, which she did. But then they were recovered. But God always makes up for things we failed in accomplishing. So even though, let's say, Faustina burned part of her diary, of Josefa Menendez threw hers in the fire, God recovers all these things one way or the other.
We have learned so much together for the past 2 years. And in regards to that, I want to share this clip of Father Iannuzzi talking about knowledge, and how knowledge in and of itself without action is sterile and does not produce life.
And this is a teaching of the magisterium of the Church. Knowledge in and of itself without action is sterile, does not produce life, does not produce living. That's life. Consider Lucifer, right? Faustina. Saint Faustina said, even the demons in hell acknowledge that God exists, but they do not serve him. So knowing is twofold. Somebody can know something like the demons know God exists, but do not serve him. That is called cognitive knowledge, abstract knowledge. It doesn't serve anyone anything, except just knowing it, and that's it. It's very sterile. Then, in addition to cognitive knowledge, there's experiential knowledge, which is lived.
And another clip for our revision together this time is on why God would allow the saints to be tested or tempted or attacked by the devil.
Now, many saints, no, I shouldn't say many, some saints have been attacked by the devil, but this is not a possession due to this fault of the saint, but it is a possession of some of the faculties of the saint by virtue of God's providence. For example, Saint Gemma Galgani, she would look at her food and see worms moving about. God allowed Satan to possess the faculty of her eye sometimes. Or Saint Padre Pio. There was no possession of any faculty of his body, but he would allow the devil to physically beat Padre Pio and torment him with visions, torment him in his dreams, and lie to him. There were cases of Blessed Anya da Foligno, or the Curate of Ars, or Luisa Picaretta, or other saints, where some parts of their faculties were inflicted by the devil. And God allowed this. And you say, why? Well, number one, for their purification. 2, for their growth in virtue. And 3, so that through their sufferings, which they freely offered up for God, willingly offered up for the love of God, saved souls from hell. So oftentimes when God allows a saint to be tormented in an unusual way, what comes to mind is also another mystic. She's not yet canonized, but I think she eventually will be, Josefa Menendez. God would allow Satan to drag her down to hell and stick her in a niche in hell where other souls would have gone had her sufferings not saved them from that niche in hell. So God would allow Satan to take out his anger upon the very instrument that snatched souls from hell. But God gave Josefa Menendez the knowledge of why this was happening. He didn't just leave her as a sport in the hands of the devil to do as he wished. He enlightened her first. He always does that. Now, some of you listening may say, this is insane. Why would God allow those most dear to him, his choicest souls, to be the butt or the sport of Satan's hatred? And the answer to that question is no less simple than it is mysterious. It's simple in this sense. The psalmist says, God chastises those whom he loves, right? And Peter in his letter says the same thing, quoting Psalms. And it's mysterious in the sense that God can bring a soul to such a state, such a height of holiness. Most of us may not be able to understand this, that the soul will understand these divine designs, that when God calls it to experience some of the interior sense of the damned in hell, that will bring them to experience the state of the loss of the damned, so that in taking upon themselves that sense of the damned, they help other souls avoid eternal damnation. They willingly embrace it. Now, most of us cannot understand this philosophy, that in taking upon ourselves the condition of someone who's completely sick, we help other people be healed. That doesn't seem to make sense to many of us, but it makes perfect sense to these saints who understand the secrets of God, the mysteries of God. And it makes perfect sense biblically. Christ took upon himself the state of a slave to free us from slavery. Christ took upon himself the state of sinfulness without committing any sin to free us from sin. And this is the logic behind God allowing souls to take upon themselves the state of the damned, or the torments of the damned, in order to free souls from damnation and the torments of damnation, without the souls themselves being damned, of course, who take upon themselves the suffering. But this is the mystery, this is the logic.
And so we have finally come to the last clip in our compilation this time, and I want to share this clip on Saint Faustina, Feast of Divine Mercy, as well as Sinners in God's Glory.
Faustina, Jesus reveals to Saint Faustina, and this comes from the entry to her diary, 1749. Faustina exclaims, "O my Creator and Lord, I see on all sides the trace of your hand and the seal of your mercy, which embraces all created things. O my most compassionate Creator, I want to give you worship on behalf of all created things and all inanimate creation. I call on the whole universe to glorify your mercy. Oh, how great is your goodness." I lost the other part of the passage here. Again, I'm pulling this up on the fly. Let me move ahead here and go back to this in a moment. To Blessed Edina Bélanger, this is a passage that comes from her autobiography, page 343, June. It was published in 1928. Jesus tells Blessed Dina, "The glory that my Father has received since the redemption is, in spite of human sinfulness, far greater than if humans had never sinned." Let me say that again. The glory that my Father has received since the redemption is, in spite of human sinfulness, far greater than if humans had never sinned, because the reparation that I offer my Father is infinite, and it makes up infinitely for all the sins of the human race. And each time a soul unites itself to me to glorify my Father, it gives him infinite glory through me. A book put out entitled The Spiritual Legacy of Sister Mary of the Holy Trinity. She was a Poor Clare nun in Jerusalem. Contains revelations of our Lord to her that has the Church's seal of approval. And in it, Jesus tells Sister Mary of the Holy Trinity, "The soul that regrets her sin and makes reparation for it gives me a greater proof of love than a soul that has avoided sin. The soul that regrets her sin and makes reparation for it gives me a greater proof of love than a soul that has avoided sin." So God has given us this beautiful treasure trove of grace at our fingertips in this Jubilee year of mercy, in the hope of renewing ourselves for the feast day of divine mercy that imparts to ourselves, imparts to our souls, a complete renewal of the inside and out. But in this Jubilee year of hope, thanks to Pope Francis, we can each day obtain a plenary indulgence that is not as easy to obtain as the plenary indulgence of divine mercy, inasmuch as they are two distinct plenary indulgences. The Church's plenary indulgence requires complete detachment of all sin while doing the 4 acts, which you're familiar with: confession within 20 days, communion on that day, 2 prayers for the Pope on that day, work of mercy on that day. Whereas the feast day of divine mercy does not require complete detachment of all sin and 4 deeds, but just confession and communion. Confession within 20 days, communion on that day. And that's a beautiful thing, because we are running out of the days of God's mercy. And this is evident in many modern-day approved prophetic, Marian, revelations, as well as apparitions and messages of Jesus Christ. And Jesus told Faustina that the times of mercy will come to an end, and so did our Blessed Mother of Medjugorje, right? 9 secrets are revealed to one seer and 10 to all the others, meaning one more secret, then all these events will begin to unfold.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned something useful from this video. And remember, if you have any suggestion or feedback, please don't hesitate to let us know in the comments below. And if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left the link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.